a very difficult one, I guess. In that, I guess the law is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, not what we want it to be or what it ought to be, but it is what it is. So, Article 54 of the Constitution, Article 54(6), provides for the cancellation of an election once one candidate dies or 52(6), where one dies or is disqualified or one resigns. Now, since you asked for our thoughts or my thoughts, I would say that there might be need to relook this law. Our parliamentarians have to sit down and really critically look at this. Well, it makes sense to cancel or postpone the election when someone dies, because death is an involuntary event. It happens to any of us. I don't think it makes any sense to cancel the election over a voluntary act of someone without any consequences on that person. Needless to say that it costs a lot of money to the taxpayer to have, we have our ballots printed in Dubai, and then somebody just comes.
And it's reported that those ballots will actually be arriving in the country and then later on discarded or rather destroyed.
Yes. So I think that as a matter of urgency, there must be a constitutional amendment to do away with the part to do with any voluntary withdrawal from the election. I don't think it should necessitate cancellation or postponement, especially that resignation is a voluntary event.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what my colleagues think, but
all right,
that's
maybe
my
let's
take on it.
come to you, Vesa. The withdrawal obviously has meant that a lot of things would have to be redone, and there are resources involved. There was logistical issues that came into play. There is also issues of staff, as well as the big one, which is the ballot papers, which have to be discarded because they will be of no use. What is your take on this, especially on the fact that it is caused by what others may term maybe some recklessness on the part of the candidate that has withdrawn?
I want to agree with what Council has said. I am no legal expert on the matter. Speaking as a Zambian citizen, I'm alive to the fact that I'm paying heavy taxes to the government of this country. And I deserve to be treated fairly as a citizen. And there should be laws that should be put in place for politicians who actually do such a thing at the expense of the taxpayers' money, because at the end of the day, an election is not for one person, it's for the citizens of the country, to ensure that democracy takes its place, to ensure that leadership is existing in a particular area. And once they withdraw, they deny the citizens that opportunity to usher in leadership to begin to steer a particular constituency in the right direction. So for me, as a Zambian citizen, it's painful that people can walk away from such a thing and no disciplinary action is taken against them. So maybe a law should be enforced, like Council was saying. There is a need to sit down and look at this and say, how do we then safeguard the interests of the citizens before the interests of the politician? And that is my takeaway from all this saga over the withdrawal of the candidate from Kawata constituency.
So perhaps maybe before we come to him, are you maybe proposing that in remedying this, there is need for a punitive law, maybe?
There should be something
a law
that
perhaps that punishes those that cause
absolutely, absolutely, because I mean, you can't walk away from divorce and you walk empty-handed, and there's always consequences to an action.
Okay.
I hope everyone agrees. There should be consequence to such an action. That's just, it's not about one person. It's a whole constituency. How many people are involved? And they're being denied leadership because one person decided they can't do this anymore. They should have done a sausage and ask themselves if they are ready to take up a mantle of leadership in Kawata. If they weren't ready, they shouldn't have stepped up and caused such a setback for the rest of the candidates and also for the citizens of Kawata constituency. So that's my takeaway.
I want to hear your views, Miyata.
Yeah, not so much far away from what has been shared already, but speaking as a concerned citizen, 1 out of 7 candidates withdraws, and the consequence affects all 7. Looking at it from a perspective of how much resource, time, effort has been put in place in terms of preparation for that election, I think it's not a fair thing. Of course, I know that's what the law says, but I also believe that the law should work for the good of the people, because we are the people who create those laws. So if the law is found not to be working, if a particular law is found not to be helping us in terms of sustaining our resources that are required to be dedicated to such an effort, such a cause, then that is evidence enough that we should have a second look at that particular law and probably make it work so that at least it can be beneficial. What good is it to have a law that is not beneficial to its own citizens, to its own people that have created it? So I think we need to stop drafting laws for the sake of having them written down, but we should begin to draft laws for the sake of having them work for us, for the betterment of the citizens of this republic, because that's a lot of money involved. That's a lot of preparation involved. And on the other hand, we are talking about the socio-economic challenges that our citizens are facing, and we are talking about finding solutions to those, and those also require resources. If we have too much money to spend on such an event, which has been caused by a voluntary decision of 1 against thousands of people in Kawata, then it means we should be able to dedicate those resources to the right channels, to fight poverty, to address the issues of water and sanitation, the water, roads, and so on and so forth. So I think it's not a working law for me in my perspective. As to add on what my colleague have already shared earlier on.
All right, so now let us talk about...
just to add
please.
a different dimension to this. A study was done recently by SILA, Center for Young Leadership in Africa. They found that on average a by-election costs 5 million kwacha. Okay, so we're talking 5 million kwacha thrown down the drain. And just to add a bit of spice into it, the average university fees for a university student in this country are about 20,000 kwacha. So that 5 million kwacha we've thrown away could have paid for 250 students.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the magnitude of the wastage that is at play here. So I just wanted to add to what you said.
All right, so now let us talk about women and youth participation in the governance of this country. And let us just maybe have an assessment of the last round of nominations, especially in the Kawata by-election, as well as from the general election, which were recently held about, 4 months ago now, which was in August. What's your general assessment of the youth and women participation in the governance system of this country, especially looking at the recently held general elections? It's an open floor. I think anyone can pick it up. We'll start with the lady.
That is the problem. That is where the problem lies. Let's even pick it up from there. That's where the problem lies. Because I'll speak on women participation. Already they're telling me ladies first. With a complex attached to it to say, let us speak, then us will speak sense. But Zambia as a democratic country has not embraced to its core that women should take up leadership positions. We preach it every day. We speak of it every day, but the atmosphere doesn't allow. We have not provided an environment to allow women to step up into leadership positions. The few that have are recycled leaders, recycled women leaders. Sorry to use this term. Recycled women leaders. These are people that started politics at a young age. They've been in the system a long time. They've been in 17 governments. I'm hypothetically speaking. And so we find the same people, and then we keep on looking to the same people and claim that women are taking up leadership positions in government or in leadership spaces in society, which is not correct. The environment needs to allow that not only for men to create the space, for women ourselves to begin with ourselves to create the space for leadership. If I stood up and said, I want to stand in Kabata today, and I went door-to-door campaigning and asking for a woman vote, they all look at me like this. We don't believe in ourselves as much as we want other people to believe in us. And we haven't yet started creating that space for so much support. I know a lot of women out there are going to disagree because there's a lot of women networks, a lot of women leadership trainings centers and so on and so forth. But are we stepping up in the necessary places where we need to champion our own advocacy? Are we stepping up into places of leadership that are impactful? Other than me being a chairperson for this women-led organization with a small magnitude of women, am I stepping up to say, I want to get to cabinet office and what are the steps I need to take? Are we positioning ourselves in those spaces? Women play a very critical role. I want to believe that a country is like a home.
Yeah.
Yes? A country is like a home, and in a home, the women are the best managers.
Okay.
Yes, we are managing your time, your resources, your children, your ambitions. We are managing you not throwing clothes in the washing basket. We're managing a lot of things.
Absolutely.
And we are amazing multitaskers. So if we trusted ourselves enough to realize that we can take up leadership positions and actually change the face of this country, support what men are doing, support what other women are doing, we might do ourselves justice. At this moment, and I speak boldly, women ourselves, number one, have not created the environment and have not believed in ourselves enough. Number two, the men preach, they don't act. They preach, let's give a woman a space. In the last regime, it was said 40% of women leadership should be from women. It was not achieved. In the current regime, we can't even talk about 40%. A whole cabinet has got 4 women. So where are we stepping up enough to create the environment? We had the same cry when we saw nominations of permanent secretaries. We had the same cry when we saw the appointments of ministers. We had the same cry when we saw the appointments of district commissioners. Are you telling me that Zambia as a country doesn't have women who are smart enough to be a district commissioner? Are you telling me women in Zambia are not smart enough to be permanent secretaries or ministers in various spaces? We have the capacity. But once men speak of it, begin to act on it and create the environment for us to thrive. So governance in this country borders around management, and women are good managers. Democracy in this country borders around good governance, where women should also coexist with men and ensure that the space is provided. So for me, I stand to say that we are very far away from what we want to see. We are preaching something we are not doing. And it's about time we change that mindset. We were so optimistic about the New Dawn government, and we are still optimistic because I know that there's still a lot of opportunities that they can provide to women, young women and girls. And so for me, I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful because I know leadership is not only in government, it's also in society. So if I can be a leader in my community by joining the Neighborhood Watch, I can be a leader in my community by joining other organizations, PTA and whatnot, I start from there and begin to build myself. And once I position myself, I'll be recognized for my ability to lead others. And so that is very key as well.
All right, so we'll get his legal perspective, but let us get it from you, maybe from a youth perspective.
Yeah, actually, every time we talk about youth and women, it's almost like you are talking about the same thing, because they face similar challenges most of the time. They are often left out, and that's what pains me. But in terms of the current status, I think there's so much hope in terms of the perspective of promoting youth and women engagement or participation in governance issues, participation in democracy. I think now we even have many platforms created to support youth participation, to support women participation in governance issues, in democracy issues in the country. But I think the first question we should ask ourselves is, do the women have the potential to play a critical role that can lead to the transformation of our democracy for the better, to the transformation of our governance for the better? The answer is yes. We have the potential as young people. Our women have the potential. Honestly speaking, there can never be any election or any democratic decision anywhere in this world that can be made, that can be successful, that can be progressive without the involvement of youth, without the involvement of women. Because these are the critical stakeholders when it comes to democracy. These are the critical stakeholders when it comes to good governance in the country. If the youth are not happy, if the women are not happy, nothing will happen. Which is why their involvement is critical, which is why we need to promote the youth, the women as much as possible by creating more platforms, by actually making a level playing field for them to freely participate. The first question to ask ourselves is, are the politics in this country attractive to the youth? Are the politics in this country attractive to our women? Yes, the environment is hostile, which is why very few are participating. But of course, in terms of potential, yes, we do have the potential. But also it speaks to, I'm sorry, I like talking about mindset because I'm a mindset coach, to the mindset of ourselves as young people, to the mindset of our women themselves. What do we think about ourselves? Do we think that we can change the level playing field for the better? We need to believe that. If we don't start by believing in ourselves, whether you're a woman, whether you're a youth, nothing can be done for us. Because we come from a background where we think other people should make decisions for us. But we should look at ourselves as critical stakeholders in the decision making of our affairs, whether you're a youth, whether you're a woman. Issues of youth and women are serious issues. Very, very serious issues. And there's nothing we can do to bring development that we want to see in this country without bringing young people closer, without bringing women closer. Go to the communities, the grassroots. Who are the decision influencers? They are the women. Women groups are very influential than anything else. Youth groups are very influential than anything else. But why then are we not engaging them? Why? What is missing? Why do we keep on seeing the same old faces coming back into the spaces for governance?
So coming to you, Mandisa, let us look at it from a legal perspective. The last constitutional review process, despite its own controversies, as well as despite it being a hotly political and contested issue, had a provision which deliberately talks about women and youth in the governance system. So maybe away from the politicization of the last constitutional review, which unfortunately was unsuccessful, obviously, for many reasons that politicians have or will give. But could it be right that maybe we embarked on another constitutional review that looks at such a clause that promotes women and youth participation in the governance of this country?
Okay, I suppose you are referring to Bill 10 as the failed...
I deliberately didn't want to mention Bill 10 because it was, and I believe still remains, a sore political issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Bill 10 had a clause to do with proportional representation. They brought in the aspect of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We call them differentially able these days. Yeah, but the problem which was there was it wasn't very elaborate on how it was supposed to be done. It was just a blanket clause. Okay. Now to answer your question, I'll give a bit of historical perspective. The issue of having a deliberate policy of putting women and youth in decision-making positions has been there for the better part of 25 years, I should think. Okay? If I tell you that right now, in the Constitution as we speak, Article 45, that's Article 45(1), paragraph C and D, okay, requires that the Electoral Commission of Zambia, or whoever is in charge of elections, implements an electoral system that it actually says shall ensure, right? The electoral system for president, MP, or councillor shall ensure. I'll go to paragraph C, which says fair representation of various interest groups in society, and D, gender equity in the National Assembly and Council. It's in the Constitution.
Okay.
Amendment number 2 of 2016. Right now, this is the law. Okay? We go on. Article 259, 1B says, this is where Obesa was complaining a lot. I would like to tell her that there is a law which covers that. Where a person is empowered to make a nomination or an appointment to a public office, that person shall ensure that 50% of each gender is nominated or appointed from the total available positions unless it is unpracticable to do so. Equitable representation of the youth and persons with disabilities where they qualify for nomination or appointment.
Okay.
The law is there as we speak.
But is that
Constitution.
law maybe enforced or
It's
is
the
that given?
Constitution.
It's in the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the
Yes,
land.
but those that maybe have the mandate to make sure that the law is followed
No.
to the letter, do they do so? Is there a political will? Maybe that should be the other question.
Now, we haven't done very well. The problem we have in this country is we make rules that we do not follow. This is a very new constitution. It was enacted in 2016.
Mhm.
Very beautiful provisions. It's very clear. It says 50% of each gender, which means, now, look at this. In 2017, the World Bank classified Zambia as the worst country in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of implementing the gender guidelines. At that time, which is 2017, following the 2016 elections, we had 28 female members of parliament, right? Unfortunately, in the last election, we did worse than we were in 2017. In 2021, as we speak right now, we have 23 female members of parliament, which is just 14%, 14.1%. And then listen to this, we have only 6 people who can be classified as youth who are below the age of 35. It gets worse still. Our cabinet has got 25 appointed ministers, 27 if we count the president and the vice president. Out of 27, we only have 5 women. No young person. There is no one below the age of 35 in cabinet. The youngest minister is 41 years old.
And they are
That
not
is
youth.
Chibokamlenga. Yes. Now, can we say that our powers that be are not following their own rules, which is the Constitution? Because if we have 23 females in parliament, and you have a cabinet of 25 members, if you are to strictly follow Article 259 of the Constitution, which makes it mandatory that 50% of such positions should be given to women, then we should be having 12 women, yes, in cabinet, as ministers, 12, right? Now, we have 23 women in parliament. So, there is no excuse. We can't say that we don't have enough women.
We can't get a 12.
Yeah, we can't get 12 women from 23. I should think that we have a problem of disregarding what we commit ourselves to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we committed ourselves and we entrenched it in the Constitution to say this is what we're going to do. We're going to have 50% of women. Now, we have a cabinet with 25 members and only 5 women. Yet, we had 23 women to choose from sitting in that house. I think we need to change the way we look at these things as a people, as a country, as men as well.
Especially as men.
I
Especially
agree
that
with
the
you.
appointing authorities sit as men.
Yes, I think we really need to take these things seriously. If something is a legal provision, then we have no excuse not to follow it. especially if it's in the constitution, then there's no excuse whatsoever. We might as well say that, without sounding very crude, the appointment of the cabinet did not follow the constitutional provisions. And this is not the first time it has happened. It happened in 2016 as well. So it's a trend.
And,
We're hoping
and we are talking about a country governed by the rule of law as a priority.
Okay.
So if you're talking about a country being governed by the rule of law, then it means the law should lead the way, and such decisions must be made.
Can I just add on to what
Please, quickly, sir.
this
Maybe we
one
can
of the
also open
gentlemen
the
are saying?
phone lines.
All right. I just want to say, it starts from the political parties.
Okay.
This is where the problem is. We have a mandate at the electoral space. When you talked about the Electoral Commission of Zambia having a mandate to ensure fair representation, the political parties don't give space to these women. They are not nominating women that can do better. They are not training these women in the 4 years they have between now and 2026. They are not mentoring these women to take up these leadership positions. If I stepped up and I joined Kabwalala political party today, right? Because Vesa is well vested with women issues. She's an advocate for women rights and girls, and she's a media person. She understands how information flows, and she speaks well sometimes. They'll say, okay, let's nominate Fesa because she can represent herself. But there's a brilliant young girl sitting here in Olympia somewhere with a brilliant idea on how to bring development to young women and how they can participate in politics. But they are going to forgo that person. Why? One, that person is not exposed. That person doesn't have their own money, so on and so forth. The political parties, are they creating the space? Because it starts from there. Everyone who goes into parliament is coming from a political space, whether as an independent or from a political party. So let's begin by talking to the political parties. How are you embracing what the constitution says about fair representation in parliament and in the cabinet?
Okay, so let us open the phone lines and perhaps start picking a few calls. This is a current affairs discussion on Millennium Radio, sponsored by the Zambia United States Exchanges Alumni Association. You can give us a call and contribute on our discussion. We're discussing the role of youth and women in promoting democracy and good governance in Zambia. The numbers that you are calling us on are 0953 448551, 0962 870921. These are the numbers that you are calling us on. You can give us a call and give us your contribution on this subject. 0953 448551. You are through to Millennium Radio. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Very well. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
This is Andrew Kapemba calling in from Angola.
Andrew in Ndola, please go on with your contribution. You have at least a minute to do so.
I think this is a very timely discussion and topic to have. The biggest challenge we're having with women leadership is that women themselves are not lobbying themselves. Okay? Right now, they expect that these leadership roles should be given to them, but they are not taking the bull by the horn. They should come together. Lobby, put up resources up front so they can support each other. Okay? Right now, we need young ladies to be trained, to be mentored. Okay? In the ways of policy making, leadership roles in politics. As of now, if you look at the political front, we do not have any vibrant youthful leader we can really talk about. All we have are the old guys of the theory, capitals. Okay, those are the only ones who got a voice which we can say for credibility. But the rest,
All right, so kindly conclude, Andrew, in the interest of time.
Yeah, so right now, women need to lobby, come together. I think that's when we can see the change. That's when we can see the market factor of Zambia.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, you're through to Millennium Radio. What's your name and where are you calling us from? All right, I'll kindly speak up and please go on with your contribution, sir.
My contribution over that is sorry. Okay, Mr. Mufema, sometimes the women are shunned from getting themselves to come up to strong in a political race. Why I'm saying so? fear that these political parties, they have too much violence, whereby they fear to brutalize. So, because of that, the political space for women are kept in the political party. That's why you find in the parliament, justified 23, 24. Yeah, this is how it is in Zambia. Now we should change our mindset to say, this is the women in the stand.
Okay.
Come talk about the campaigning. Campaigning, if a woman cannot manage to campaign for herself, even to go around, you find that they will utilize that.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon. Unfortunately, we lost that call. 0953448551. Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you, Mr. Moderator?
Very well. Thank you. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
Yeah, my name is Philemon. Now calling you from within Lusaka capital.
Quickly go on, Mr. Philemon. Yeah, you actually have less than a minute.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon, guests there.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. No, women are a problem in this country.
Why do you say so?
Let me qualify this.
Unfortunately, we lost him. Let's see if he can call us back. 0953448551 0962870921. These are the numbers that you are calling us on. We are picking our final call, and now we get to react to the calls. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What's your name and where are you calling us from?
This is Patrick calling in from within Lusaka.
Please go on with your contribution.
Yes, sir. Let's think first. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Patrick.
Yes, I wanted to find out. Are you coming from one organization or separate from all the people from the panel?
Yeah, we are all from the same association.
Okay, yeah. So for me, what I've noticed is that in this country we are good at talking. Acting, very few people act. This is an organization. It would be better when, for instance, we say towards the election, general election, we get some of these people to lobby for suitable candidates from each ward, constituency, that kind of thing. So that they have been forced, because like you're saying, it's enshrined in our constitution. So it's a forcing matter. You force them. Those who don't want to comply, then they don't take this course, or they get to be disqualified, or they get to be campaigned, because they're not doing the right thing. So I think that's my take on that one.
All right, thank you very much. So, you both have a minute each to react to the calls. You can pick on any.
Okay. I'll react to Patrick, the last caller, and Mr. Mobala in Kapiri. Mr. Patrick, the unfortunate part is while the Constitution mandates the appointing authorities to appoint 50% women, there is nothing in that Constitution that specifies what should happen if it doesn't happen. Yeah. So if it doesn't happen, then what? The law is silent on that one. So there's nothing we can do. We can rely on the will of the people to obey the law. Then I want to agree with Mr. Mubala why women shun positions. He mentioned violence. I would also want to add on to say the politics in this country is not youth friendly. It's not woman friendly. Number one, you already said the past 10 years, there was the cadres. It was something else. It was scary to even think about talking on radio like I'm talking right now. Secondly, politics in Zambia is expensive, very expensive. For you to be an MP, you need in excess of about 300,000 kwacha. Now, how many people under the age of 35 can or have those sort of resources that they can actually spend 300,000 kwacha just on an election, which you are not guaranteed of winning? Now, given our society where women traditionally of limited means, now I'm going to bracket together the women and the youth, because all of us as young people, if you ask me, I don't have that sort of money in my bank account right now as we speak, and I'm a lawyer. Now, imagine. Yeah. Now, we can't say that people don't want to come forward. We have brilliant young people out there. We have brilliant women out there. But the environment is not conducive. And if the environment is not leveled out such that anyone, even you seated there, you can wake up today and say, I want to be an MP because I have the brains for it. I have the zeal for it. Only then, such a thing happening, only then can we have the type of leaders that we want.
Let's under a minute.
I'll respond to Mr. Andrew and Mr. Philemon, who just said women are a problem and hang up. Mr. Andrew said women are not lobbying enough, and so the credibility of politics in this country and governance are left to old-timers. He gave some example. I want to really disagree. Can we say that the phone that we used in 2000 is the same phone we're using today? No. That leaves to say that times are changing, and as times are changing, the landscape, even the political landscape, is also changing. The governance landscape is also changing. Credibility should not be left in old-timers. Potential should begin to be identified in new-timers. We should be created a space where the Mumbipiris, the Dorasilias, the whoever, now call us in and say, this is our experience with politics in this country, and this is the way to go about it. This is how you position yourself for leadership. So responding to Mr. Andrew, that's what I would say. We don't have to lobby to take up leadership positions. We should be recognized by the potential we have to take up leadership positions. Women are a problem. Women are a problem everywhere. Because you see me now, I'm expressing myself because I've understood who I am. I'm self-aware. And this is what happens when women are self-aware. But we also make very, very good managers. And we are able to contribute to the growth of this country, its landscape, political and governance landscape, and democracy.
Okay.
Yeah, very
Last
interesting.
but not the least.
So first of all, I was expecting at least a woman to call.
You know what I mean, eh?
No, I'm sure they are trying, but maybe due to limited time, they couldn't go through.
Issues of good governance and democracy are issues of poverty itself. Like my colleague has mentioned earlier on, do our youth, do our women have the capacity in terms of resources? If the answer is no, then we need to answer that question. I'm so optimistic and looking forward to how we are going to implement the decentralization policy by the Newton government and see how youth and women will benefit from this to empower themselves.
Absolutely.
So empowerment is in two forms. There's empowerment in terms of skills development, leadership development, which is where an association like the Zambia US Exchange Alumni Association comes in, where we have various US exchanges program where youth and women can benefit from to build their capacities, to build their skills in terms of leadership perspective. And by so doing, then we can answer the first question, which is the skills development in terms of capacity building. The second aspect is the economic aspect of things. How are we building the capacity of our youth in terms of the economics? How are we building the capacity of our women in terms of economics? So this is where the youth empowerment programs would come in, women empowerment programs would come in, and this should directly benefit the youth themselves, not the so-called adult youths,
The credible, alleged credible.
So we need to have the real people benefiting from these programs so that at least we can see the result and effect of that. So when youth are empowered, when women are empowered, then we can talk about good governance, talk about democracy, because even myself then have the courage to stand and challenge the next person to say, I'm going to stand in 2026, I'm going to challenge you, I'm going to the polls with you, and I can support my campaign and win that election. So I think that's my contribution to the discussion.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, they say whatever goes up must surely come down, and unfortunately this is where the program comes to an end. It's been a very insightful discussion, and many thanks that you could grace the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's all we could accommodate on the program. This has been a current affairs discussion on Millennium Radio, sponsored by the United States Exchanges Alumni Association. Our guests have been Meluli Malisa, a legal practitioner based at Kianamina, a media and communications specialist, and Akufuna Muyunda, a climate leader and mindset coach. And I've been your host, Mugwima Timothy Gilal. Until next time, bye-bye for now.